Hi everyone, this is Sumant from Decode Now. Welcome to the lecture series on building a Spring Boot application to perform basic CRUD operations. In the previous video, we created two get endpoints. In the first get endpoint, we used to retrieve all the data present in the personal details table. And in the second get endpoint, we retrieved only single object based on the ID which was present in the path variable. So let's go to our to-do list and mark creating the get endpoint as completed. So the next step we have is to create a put endpoint. So a put endpoint is nothing but we are trying to update a particular endpoint. So let's see how we can do that. In our controller class, I'll create one annotation saying put mapping and pass in the URL /update. So let's see what this put mapping is. Put mapping is basically an annotation which is used in Spring Boot to handle the HTTP put request. As we have seen earlier, we have used get mapping for get request and post mapping for the post HTTP request. So similarly, we use put mapping for put request. That is like if you want to update something or if you want to modify something, we use put endpoint. So I'll create a method. So we are updating something based on an ID. So we need a path variable. Let's call it as ID. We'll create a method, a public method, which returns string. I'll just say success after updating the record, and I'll call the name as update by ID. And we need two parameters for this update by ID method. The first parameter is at path variable. So this is the path variable which is our ID in this case. It's a dynamic value which is present in the URL. We are trying to get that. It is of type integer and we'll give the name as ID. And the second parameter is the request body. So the client or the user is going to send us the request body that is the updated data that they want to update in our database, and that is of type personal details, and I'll just give it the name as personal details itself. So this is our update by ID is our controller method for the put endpoint. Now we will have to call the service class for the business logic. So we'll create a method here in the service class, say public, and it will return nothing, so it's void. And I'll give the name of this method as update by ID, and it will accept two parameters. One is of type integer, let's say ID, and the other is of type personal details, and let's say personal details. And what we have to do is we'll first create get the object of personal details based on this ID using this get by ID method. So I'll say var personal details 1 is equal to get by ID. So now I have personal details. What I'll do is I'll say personal details 1 dot set address of the address. I'll get it from the personal details object which is passed in the request body. Say dot get address. Similarly, I can say personal details 1 dot set first name as personal details dot get first name, and then I'll say personal details 1 dot set last name to be personal details dot get last name. So basically what I'm doing here is in this update by ID method, there are two parameters. One is the integer ID, which is passed as a path variable, and then the other is the personal detail object, which is passed as the request body. I'm creating a new personal details object here by using the method get by ID. It will retrieve the data present in our personal details table with respect to this particular ID. And I am storing that in this object called personal details 1. So now I'm changing the values to whatever the values they have sent in the request body. I'm just saying there are three fields: address, first name, and the last name. I'm just setting those by getting it from this object. I'm setting the fields of personal details one object by getting the details from personal details object. So that's what is happening here. And at the end, I'll just say personal details repo dot save personal details 1. Now it is successfully updated in our personal details repository also. So in the controller class, I'll just call the personal details service and call the method update by ID, passing the ID which is present in the path variable and also the personal details which is present in our request body. So now this automatically calls here and updates our repository, and here we'll have to return something because the return type is string. So I'll just say return of type string, so that is, I'll say success, close it with semicolon. This particular endpoint updates a particular record based on the ID. So let's run our application. Now it's running. Let's go to Postman, create a record, see if this particular record is created as expected. Yes. Then we have get by ID. If I send that, we are receiving the first ID, which is Hemant HS. Suppose I want to change the first name from Hemant to Sumant and the last name from HS to Yes. Let me create a new endpoint and change the HTTP method to put, since it's a put HTTP request. I'll say localhost 8080 slash details slash, what is the URL which we mentioned here in the put mapping annotation is update and ID. So I'll say update slash ID is the ID 1 which we want to update, and so this is the dynamic path variable which we are passing. And if I come to request body and say go to raw, and I'll add the, okay, I'll just copy paste it from here instead of typing. So I don't need to send the ID since I'm already sending it in path variable. I'll just change the first name from Hemant to Sumant and the last name from HS to Yes. So if I send, I'm getting an error saying 404 not found. Again, it's a spelling mistake. So details update, and I'll just send, and it is telling 415 unsupported media type. That was the issue we came across earlier. It was because of this content type. I'll just change the content type to, I'll just change the content type to application JSON. Then send the request, and it is a success. And now if I see the data, first name changed from Hemant to Sumant and the last name changed from HS to Yes. So our put endpoint is working as expected. So that's all for this video. If you have learned something new, please do subscribe to our channel and support us. If you have any questions, suggestions, or requests, please let us know in the comment section below. And don't forget to like the video. See you in the next video.